You wake up before the alarm, not because you want to, but because your body already knows. The day has claimed you before you've even stood up. The ceiling above you is familiar, too familiar. Same color, same cracks, same quiet dread pretending to be routine. You check the time. 6:47 a.m., 7 minutes early. Always early. You tell yourself this is discipline, but deep down you know the truth. This is conditioning. You've been here before, not this room, this moment, this feeling, the subtle pressure in the chest, the heaviness that doesn't hurt enough to call pain, just enough to call normal. You shower, dress, eat something that tastes like function. You look respectable, responsible, successful. You look like someone who made it. And that's the most dangerous part. 13 years, same company, different titles, slightly better chair. A salary that grew just fast enough to keep you quiet, just fast enough to keep you hopeful. They called it progress. You called it stability. But stability, when examined closely, often looks like a cage with soft padding. Money flows in, money flows out, every month like clockwork. Rent, insurance, subscriptions you forgot to cancel, a car you barely enjoy but can't imagine losing. You earn more now, yet somehow you feel poorer. Not financially, existentially, because the more you earn, the more expensive your life becomes, and the more expensive your life becomes, the harder it is to walk away. This is the salary trap, not built with chains but with comfort, not enforced with violence but with fear, fear of falling, fear of disappointing, fear of losing an identity you never consciously chose. You were told this was freedom, a steady paycheck, health benefits, paid time off. A future that could be predicted 30 years in advance. But predictability is not freedom. It is permission to stop questioning. Modern slavery doesn't look like suffering. It looks like success. Every morning, millions of intelligent people enter glass buildings and call it ambition. They trade hours of their life for numbers on a screen that disappear the moment they stop showing up. They don't own their time. They rent it out, cheaply. And the cruelest part, they're praised for it. Hard worker, team player, reliable, words that sound like compliments until you realize they are traits of obedience. No one tells you that the system only rewards you as long as you don't leave it. At first, the salary feels powerful. Your first real paycheck, you remember it, the confidence, the pride, the relief, you felt chosen, validated. But what you didn't notice was the invisible contract, not the one you signed, the one you accepted. We will take your best hours, your sharpest focus, your most creative years. And in return, we will make sure you're just comfortable enough to never risk freedom. No one said it out loud. They didn't need to. Years pass. You upgrade your life but downgrade your dreams. You stop asking, what do I want? And start asking, what can I afford? Your conversations change. You talk about interest rates, promotions, weekend plans that exist only to help you recover for Monday. Vacations don't feel like freedom. They feel like oxygen. Short, necessary, never enough. And when they end, the relief of returning to routine feels disturbingly real. That's when you know the cage has adjusted to your shape. You tell yourself stories. I'm building security. I'll leave later. Once I save enough, but later never arrives, because the finish line moves every time you get closer. The mortgage arrives, then the kids, then expectations, not yours, theirs. You're no longer working for money. You're working to avoid chaos, and fear is a far stronger motivator than desire. This is not an accident. The system is designed this way. Predictable workers, predictable spending, predictable obedience. People too busy surviving to question the structure they are trapped inside. And yet, not everyone stays asleep. Somewhere along the way, a quiet discomfort begins. It doesn't scream, it whispers, late at night, on Sundays. During meetings that should have been emails, a thought appears. Is this really it? You dismiss it. Dangerous thought. You scroll, you distract, you silence it, but it returns, stronger. You start noticing things. How senior people look tired, not fulfilled. How promotions don't bring peace, only more responsibility. how the highest paid are often the most afraid to leave. Golden handcuffs, polished, shiny, heavy. Then one day something breaks, not dramatically, quietly, a missed moment, a delayed dream, a realization that time is moving faster than your courage. You look at your life and see structure, but no soul, safety, but no sovereignty. And for the first time, you don't want more money, you want control. Here is the truth few are ready to hear. A high salary is not wealth, it is dependency. True wealth is the ability to say no, to walk away, to choose your day, to own your time. The richest people are not those with the biggest paychecks. They are the ones who are not afraid of missing one. Escaping the salary trap doesn't start with quitting. It starts with seeing the trade you're making. Seeing the cost beyond money, seeing that comfort can be more dangerous than struggle. Freedom requires discomfort, uncertainty, temporary instability in exchange for permanent autonomy. That's why most people never choose it. You don't need motivation, you need honesty. Ask yourself, quietly, if nothing changed for 10 years, would this life satisfy you? If the answer feels heavy, don't ignore it. That weight is awareness. Some will hear this and feel offended. Good, it means the illusion is cracking. Others will feel calm, dangerously calm. They are not ready yet, and a few, very few, will feel silence, a deep, unsettling stillness. That is the moment the spell breaks, not panic, not excitement. Just clarity, the realization that you were never trapped by the job. You were trapped by the fear of leaving it. Freedom doesn't announce itself. It arrives quietly, as a decision made alone, in a moment no one else sees. And when it comes, nothing looks different, but everything is. You go to sleep that night knowing one thing: this is not forever, and that knowledge alone changes everything. Freedom is rarely loud. It doesn't arrive with resignation letters or dramatic speeches. It begins much earlier, in silence. After the realization comes calm, not relief, calm, the dangerous kind, because calm means you are no longer emotional. And emotion is what keeps people trapped. You stop complaining. That's the first sign, not because things improved, but because you stopped expecting them to. You no longer argue with reality. You observe it. Meetings become theater. Deadlines become background noise. Office politics lose their grip. You're still present, but no longer invested, and no one notices. That's important. You don't announce your awakening. That would be foolish. Modern systems punish awareness when it's spoken too early, so you keep your voice neutral, your performance consistent. You smile, you deliver, you remain reliable, but inside, a separation has occurred. You begin to understand the difference between income and leverage. Salary is income. It stops the moment you stop. Leverage continues without permission. This is where the exit truly begins, not with rebellion, with learning. At night, when others escape through entertainment, you study, quietly, not hustling, not rushing, studying structure, how money moves, how value compounds, how systems reward ownership far more than effort. You realize something unsettling. Hard work was never the path. Control was. You audit your life, not dramatically, methodically. Expenses, dependencies, commitments that no longer serve you. You notice how many things exist solely to justify your salary. The car, the image. The unnecessary complexity. You don't destroy your life, you simplify it, because mobility requires lightness. Fear still appears, but it sounds different now. Less like panic, more like negotiation. What if this fails? What if you lose everything? You listen. Then you respond calmly. What if staying costs more? Fear retreats when questioned properly. You don't chase wealth, you build options, small ones at first, a skill sharpened, an asset acquired. A system tested quietly, no announcements, no social validation. The most dangerous moves are the silent ones. You notice something strange. The more independent your thinking becomes, the less attractive the crowd feels. Group conversations repeat themselves. Advice sounds recycled. Ambition feels scripted. You are no longer seeking permission, and that makes you invisible to those who still are. Time changes. You stop counting hours worked and start noticing how much of the day belongs to you. Moments stretch, thoughts deepen. You feel something unfamiliar space. Your job remains, for now, but it no longer defines you. It funds the transition. That distinction matters. You're not trapped anymore. You're using the system instead of being used by it. You stop fantasizing about quitting. That was phase one. Now you're building something that makes quitting irrelevant. When freedom becomes inevitable, urgency disappears. There will be a moment, small, private, when you realize you could leave if you wanted to, not emotionally, logistically. That's the real threshold. You don't cross it immediately. You sit with it. Power should never be rushed. Eventually, the office feels smaller. The conversations flatter. The fear that once controlled you feels outdated, and one day, without drama, you step away, not to escape, but to expand. Freedom does not feel euphoric. It feels quiet, stable, almost boring, and that's how you know it's real. You wake up, no alarm, no urgency, no ceiling staring back with silent resentment, just time, yours. And in that stillness, you understand something few ever do. The salary trap was never about money. It was about permission. And you no longer need it. No one tells you this part because it doesn't sound inspiring. And inspiration is easier to sell than reality. Freedom arrives quietly, and then nothing happens. No applause, no validation. No external confirmation that you made the right choice. Just space, silence, and an unfamiliar responsibility. Your life is now yours. At first, it feels light. You wake without urgency. You move without permission. Time stretches. You notice the day, but soon something unexpected appears. Loneliness, not social loneliness, existential. There is no manager to impress, no structure to blame, no system to push against. There is only you, and that can be terrifying. This is where most people turn back. Not because freedom failed, but because identity did. For years, your role answered questions for you. Who are you? What do you do? Why are you valuable? Now, those answers are gone. And silence demands new ones. You begin to understand something uncomfortable. The job didn't just give you money, it gave you meaning. Borrowed meaning, artificial meaning, but meaning nonetheless. Freedom doesn't replace that automatically. It exposes the absence. Some people panic. They miss the meetings, the deadlines, the familiar stress. Stress, at least, was predictable. Freedom is not. So they romanticize the past. It wasn't that bad. At least I was secure. Maybe I left too soon. And just like that, they return. They tell themselves they're smarter now, more aware. But the system doesn't care. It welcomes them back warmly. Same chair. Same salary, same invisible leash. Because the system doesn't fear escape, it fears permanent independence, and most people never reach that stage. Freedom demands something rare, self-direction, no roadmap, no guarantees. No one to blame when progress slows. You realize structure was never the enemy, dependency was. Another truth emerges. Money feels different now, irregular, unpredictable, alive, and many people can't handle that. They say they want freedom, but what they actually want is safety without supervision. That doesn't exist. You notice how others react. Friends ask when you'll get a real job again. Family worries quietly. Society has no category for someone who stepped outside the script, so they try to pull you back, not maliciously, instinctively. Your freedom threatens their comfort. This is the final test, not financial, psychological. Can you stand being misunderstood? Can you tolerate not being easily explained? Can you live without external validation? Most cannot, so they trade autonomy for applause. Again, but a very few, adapt. They build internal structure, personal discipline, self-defined goals, private standards. They stop chasing purpose and start creating it. They learn to sit with uncertainty without flinching. They accept fluctuating income in exchange for fixed freedom. They understand that boredom is not failure, it is peace unrecognized, and slowly a new identity forms, not job-based, not status-based, self-based, quiet. Unimpressive to the crowd, unbreakable. They no longer need to prove anything. They don't announce success. They don't argue with doubters. They simply live differently. And that difference is permanent. Here is the truth no one says out loud. Escaping the salary trap is easy. Staying free is rare, because freedom requires maturity, not ambition. You will be tempted to return on difficult days, during slow months, when uncertainty feels heavy. That temptation never fully disappears, but it weakens every time you choose autonomy over comfort. One day, you realize something quietly. You could go back, but you don't want to. Not because the job was evil, but because you outgrew permission-based living. There is no celebration, no finish line, just a calm understanding. This life may be uncertain, but it is honest. And honesty is the highest form of luxury. Most people never leave, not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack opportunity, but because they never question the first agreement they made. They accepted a life before they understood its cost. They were good students. Obedient, punctual, reliable. They learned early that approval follows compliance, and compliance over time became identity. By the time the discomfort appears, the structure is already complete. They wake up one day not unhappy, just tired, tired in a way sleep cannot fix, but they call it adulthood, responsibility, normal. And normal is the most effective prison ever designed, they tell themselves. I can't leave now, too much to lose, maybe later. Later becomes years, years become decades, and the idea of freedom slowly transforms from possibility to fantasy. They stop imagining alternatives. That's the real loss. Not money, not time, imagination. Because imagination is where escape begins. They become experts at endurance. They wear burnout like maturity, stress like importance. They are praised for surviving systems that quietly consume them. And praise is a powerful sedative. They watch others leave. Entrepreneurs, creators, quiet independents. They admire them briefly, then dismiss them. Too risky, not realistic. Lucky, anything to avoid asking why they themselves stayed. The system rewards them, not with freedom but with recognition, titles, plaques, long service awards. Symbols of loyalty to a life they didn't design. They smile for the photo and return to their desk. Their dreams adjust. They no longer want autonomy. They want better conditions inside the cage, more flexibility, more respect. More comfort. They negotiate the prison, never the exit. This is not failure. It is adaptation. The human mind will justify almost anything to avoid psychological conflict, especially regret, and so they don't feel trapped. They feel reasonable. That's how the system survives. One day they retire, not into freedom but into stillness. The structure disappears, and with it their borrowed identity. Some feel relief, others feel emptiness they cannot name. They say, I don't know what to do with my time. That sentence says everything. They did not live wrongly. They lived as instructed, and instruction is never the same as intention. Here is the quiet truth. Most people do not fail to escape. They simply never try, because trying would mean admitting they could have lived differently, and that realization is heavier than any salary trap. But this story is not about them. It's about you. Because if you're still listening, still present, still uncomfortable, then you already know. You were never meant to disappear into structure. Awareness is the point of no return. Once seen, the illusion cannot be unseen. You may delay. You may hesitate, you may move slowly, but you will not forget, and that is freedom beginning, quietly. If this story felt slow, that was intentional, because the truth doesn't rush. You've now seen the full arc, the comfort that traps, the awareness that cracks it, the escape that humbles, and the many who never leave, not as theory, as a pattern. This was never a story about quitting jobs. It was a story about permission, who gave it, who took it, and who eventually realized they never needed it. Nothing here asked you to act immediately. That would be noise. Freedom does not begin with urgency. It begins with seeing. You may return to the same routine tomorrow, same schedule. Same obligations, and that's fine. Awareness does not demand rebellion. It simply changes how you stand inside the structure. From this moment forward, every choice will feel different because you now understand the trade being made. Time for money, security for sovereignty, comfort for control, and understanding is irreversible. Some will forget this by morning. They always do. But a very few, will feel something linger, a quiet tension, a subtle distance between who they are and who they're expected to be. That distance is not discomfort, it is space. And space is where freedom grows. You don't need applause, you don't need permission, you don't need certainty. You only need honesty with yourself. This channel exists for those who prefer silence over slogans, control over consumption, and power that doesn't announce itself. This is Capital Lux, where money is a tool, not an identity, where freedom is built, not advertised, and where the most important shift happens quietly inside you. When you're ready, you'll know. And until then, nothing is wrong, nothing is rushed, nothing is forced.